I think for Anthropic, for a long time, there was this feeling that we wanted to build something, but it wasn't obvious what. So when I joined Ant, I spent 1 month kind of hacking and, built a bunch of like weird prototypes. Most of them didn't ship and, weren't even close to shipping. It was just kind of understanding the boundaries of what the model can do. Then I spent a month doing post-training. So to understand kind of the research side of it. I think honestly, that's just for me as an engineer. I find that to do good work, you really have to understand the layer under the layer at which you work. With traditional engineering work, if you're working on product, you want to understand the infrastructure, the runtime, the virtual machine, the language, kind of whatever that is, the system that you're building on. But yeah, if you're working in AI, you just really have to understand the model to some degree to do good work. So I took a little detour to do that, and then I came back and just started prototyping, but eventually became Claude Code. And the very first version of it, I have there's like a video recording of this summer because I recorded this demo and I posted it. It was called Claude CLI back then. And I just kind of showed off how it used a few tools. And the shocking thing for me was that I gave it a bash tool and it just was able to use that to write code, tell me what music I'm listening to when I asked it, like, what music am I listening to? This is the craziest thing because it's like, I didn't instruct the model to say, use, this tool for this or kind of do whatever. The model was given this tool and it figured out how to use it to answer this question that I had that I wasn't even sure if it could answer. What music am I listening to? So I started prototyping this a little bit more. I made a post about it and I announced it internally and it got 2 likes. That was like center of the reaction at the time. I think people internally, like when you think of coding tools, you think of IDEs, you think about kind of all these pretty sophisticated environments. No one thought that this thing could be terminal based. That's sort of a weird way to design it. And that wasn't really the intention. But, from the start, I built it in a terminal because, for the first couple months, it was just me. So it was just the easiest way to build. And for me, this is actually a pretty important product lesson. It is like you want to under-resource things a little bit at the start. And we started thinking about what other form factors we should build. And we actually decided to stick with the terminal for a while. And the biggest reason was the model is improving so quickly. We felt that there wasn't really another form factor that could keep up with it. And honestly, this was just me kind of like struggling with like, what should we build? Like for the last year, Claude Code has just been all I think about. So just like late at night, this is just something I was thinking about. Like, okay, the model is continuing to improve. What do we do? How can we possibly keep up? And the terminal was honestly just the only idea that I had. And yeah, it ended up catching on. After I released it pretty quickly, it became a hit at Anthropic and, the daily active users just went vertical. And really early on, actually, before I launched it, Ben Mann nudged me to make a DAU chart. And I was like, it's like kind of early. Maybe, should we really do it right now? And he was like, yeah. So the chart just went vertical pretty immediately. And then in February, we released it externally. Actually, something that people don't really remember is Claude Code was not initially a hit when we released it. It got a bunch of users. There was a lot of early adopters that got it immediately. But it actually took many months for everyone to really understand what this thing is. Again, it's like, it's just so different. When I think about it, kind of part of the reason Claude Code works is this idea of latent demand, where we bring the tool to where people are and it makes existing workflows a little bit easier. But also because it's in a terminal, it's like a little surprising. It's a little alien in this way. So you have to kind of be open-minded and you have to learn to use it. Of course, now, Claude Code is available, in the iOS and Android Claude app. It's available in the desktop app. It's available on the website. It's available as IDE extensions in Slack and GitHub, all of these places where engineers are. It's a little more familiar, but that wasn't the starting point. So yeah, I mean, at the beginning, it was kind of a surprise that this thing was even useful. And, as the team grew, as the product grew, as it started to become more and more useful to people around the world from, small startups to the biggest FANG companies started using it and started giving feedback. I think just reflecting back, it's been such a humbling experience. We keep learning from our users. And the most exciting thing is like, none of us really know what we're doing. And we're just trying to figure it out along with everyone else. And the single best signal for that is just feedback from users. So that's just been the best. I've been surprised so many times.
It's incredible how fast something can change in today's world. You launched this a year ago, and it wasn't the first time people could use AI to code. In a year, the entire profession of software engineering has dramatically changed. Like, there's all these predictions. Oh, AI is going to be written, 100% AI's of code is going to be written by AI. Everyone's like, no, that's crazy. What are you talking about now? It's like, of course, it's happening exactly as they said. It's just so things move so fast and change so fast.
Yeah, it's really fast. Back at Code with Claude back in May, that was like our first, developer conference that we did as Anthropic. I did a short talk, and in the Q&A after the talk, people were asking, what are your predictions for the end of the year? And my prediction back in May of 2025 was by the end of the year, you might not need an IDE to code anymore. And we're going to start to see engineers not doing this. And I remember the room like audibly gasp. It was such a crazy prediction. But I think like at Anthropic, like this is just the way we think about things is exponentials. And this is like very deep in the DNA. Like if you look at our co-founders, like 3 of them were the first 3 authors on the scaling laws paper. So we really just think in exponentials. And if you kind of look at the exponential of the percent of code that was written by Claude at that point, if you just trace the line, pretty obvious we're going to cross 100% by the end of the year, even if it just does not match intuition at all. And so all I did was trace the line. And in November, that happened for me personally. And that's been the case since. And we're starting to see that for a lot of different customers too.
I thought was really interesting what you just shared there about kind of the journey, is this kind of idea of just playing around and seeing what happens. This comes up with OpenClaw a lot, just like Peter was playing around and just like a thing happened. It feels like that's a central kind of ingredient to a lot of the biggest innovations in AI is people just sitting around trying stuff to pushing the models further than most other people.
I mean, that's the thing about innovation, right? Like you can't force it. There's no roadmap for innovation. You just have to give people space. You have to give them, maybe the word is like safety. So it's like psychological safety, that it's okay to fail. It's okay if 80% of the ideas are bad. You also have to hold them accountable a bit. So if the idea is bad, you cut your losses, move on to the next idea instead of investing more. In the early days of Claude Code, I had no idea that this thing would be useful at all. Even in February when we released it, it was writing maybe, I don't know, like 20% of my code, not more. And even in May, it was writing maybe 30%. I was still using, Cursor for most of my code. And it only crossed 100% in November. So it took a while. But even from the earliest day, it just felt like I was onto something. And I was just spending like every night, every weekend hacking on this. And luckily my wife was very supportive. But it just felt like it was onto something. It wasn't obvious. And sometimes, you find a thread, you just have to pull on it.
So at this point, 100% of your code is written by Claude Code. Is that kind of the current state of your coding?
Yeah, so 100% of my code is written by Claude Code. I'm a fairly prolific coder. And this has been the case even when I worked back at Instagram. I was like one of the top few most productive engineers. And that's still the case here at Anthropic.
Wow, even as head of the team.
Yeah, still do a lot of coding. And so every day I ship like 10, 20, 30 pull requests, something like that.
Every day?
Every day, yeah.
Good God.
100% written by Claude Code. I have not edited a single line by hand since November. And that's been I do look at the code. So I don't think we're kind of at the point yet where you can be totally hands-off, especially when there's a lot of people, like running the program. You have to make sure that it's correct. You have to make sure it's safe and so on. And then we also have Claude doing automatic code review for everything. So here at Anthropic, Claude reviews 100% of pull requests. There's still a layer of like human review after it. You kind of like, you still do want some of these checkpoints. Like you still want a human looking at the code, unless it's like pure prototype code that, it's not going to run. It's not going to run anywhere. It's just a prototype.